Welcome to episode 656 of the I Hate Critics Movie Review Podcast. I used to be your co-host, Bob Zerl. I am not on the show this week, but the guys accidentally lost the intro to this week's show, so I get to step in and do it. This week, what are they watching? Companion, You're Cordially Invited, as well as the classic AI. So anyway, when I get off here, I'll play the intro music and then it'll jump right into the companion review. So just be prepared for that. But before we get there, I want to remind you to check out Sean's reviews over at seanatthemovies.blogspot.com and jefflassiter.com to check out some of Jeff's art. Both links are in the show notes, as well as our TeePublic link and our Patreon and YouTube and all that fun stuff. So enjoy the episode.
Let's get into our first movie. Let's talk about Companion. Written and directed by Drew Hancock and starring, oh gosh, I forgot. What's her name? Sophie Thatcher. There it is. Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid. In the story of, we're going to get into spoilers. I managed to write my review without any spoilers just because I wanted to. I thought it'd be a good challenge because there's a lot about this movie that you don't know this, Jeff, because you didn't see the trailer, but there's a lot of spoilers in the trailer.
Yeah, I watched the trailer after I watched the movie this afternoon.
Yeah, it basically tells you everything, right?
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Thank you for that.
Well, you saw it before you saw the movie?
No, I saw but I was like, if I had been trying to watch the movie after I saw the trailer, I would have been really pissed because it was, like you said last week, it was a total Abigail thing.
Yeah. They give away a lot. I still love this movie. I still think it works, even having seen the trailer. But if you've not seen the trailer, if you've been holding out for this movie, my review, which you can find on our Facebook page, is spoiler free. You can read that and see my recommendation. If you're not planning on seeing the movie, or if you have seen the movie, we're going to spoil it. We're going to be talking about that because that's the conversation you have to have with this movie.
Yeah.
You can't talk about anything that happens in terms of, themes and action without going into spoilers, but you can talk around it as I did in my review. But basically the idea here is that a couple is going to a cabin in the woods with some friends to spend the weekend. The young woman, Iris, is not comfortable with this, but she's going along with it because her boyfriend, Josh, has kind of given her a little push and say, hey, come on, you can do this, and you're doing this for me, and you're going to be with my friends. It's going to be fun. She has a lot that she's not aware of about this weekend. Among many things is the fact that she's not a human being. She is a robot. She is a sex doll, to be specific. And she's being paraded about as if she is a girlfriend. And I think everybody other than her is aware of who she is, which definitely makes things even more weird and uncomfortable, especially with Josh's friend Kat, who is just openly kind of hostile to her, even as she kind of holds back enough to not tell Iris what it is about. Well, naturally, This leads to a murder, and then we're off and running. This movie's great. I think this movie's terrific. Even having had it spoiled, I think Drew Hancock is an incredible director, and he delivers just nonstop throughout this movie.
Agreed, 100%. Since I went in without knowing really anything except somebody mentioned that there was an android, and then I saw the poster. Well, it's pretty obvious who the android was. I was surprised though that there was another one.
Yeah, that was a good surprise.
That was a secret well kept, and I was watching the movie going, oh, there's hope for me because there's this guy who's really cute, who's a chubby chaser, and yeah, he's a robot. Great.
You felt like this was a personal insult.
Yes, I was like, oh, I feel very attacked right now. I to me, no, even kind of guessing what it was about, I was surprised by the kind of murder slash heist part of it. Um, that everybody was in on this thing and it wasn't just an accident. Um, I I I just watched it, so I'm like, there's so much stuff that I'm still like kind of processing through it. Sophie Thatcher though is so good.
Incredible.
She was great in Heretic. She's really been great in everything I've seen her in. She's kind of one to watch, I guess, literally, figuratively. Um, Jack Quaid, there's something like repellent about him, and they really use that to their advantage in this movie because he's just such a, I don't know. Seeing him in Scream 5, I was just kind of like, oh, he's just kind of a little icky, and that made me think, oh, maybe he's the killer, and then he was, and um, oh, okay, well, uh, when um, when they're kind of spelling out what happened with him and Iris, I just wanted to like just punch him in the face over and over and over because he was just so. He was like it was kind of almost like you could do a double bill with this and Don't Worry, Darling. Um,
Mm-hmm.
About the most repellent, good-looking guys you can find between him and Harry Styles.
Yeah.
But I think I'm glad that Sophie Thatcher is the star because she really is. I mean, she's been like, even though she was in The Boogeyman, I mean, that's kind of the only misstep for me, but
Mm-hmm.
she's been in Star Wars. She's been in Maxine. She's Yellow Jacket. So much good stuff. Heretic. That I'm like, I really, the whole time she was there, I'm like, okay, how is she going to get out of this situation where they're going to kill her? Because that's what they just keep planning that, and it's coming, and then it does, except it doesn't. And I'm like, I was really surprised. I'm like, oh, what a down ending. And then, oh, her brain isn't her brain. It's just her Wi-Fi receiver. I'm like, all right, okay, good for you. But I think all of the performances are just kind of spot on. And what's his face? Oh God. See, I'm doing it too. It's what I get for getting up at 3 a.m. Lucas Gage as
Mm-hmm.
Patrick, who I kind of felt he was an homage to Robert Patrick's T-1000
Mm-hmm.
in Terminator 2, especially when he puts on the deputy's uniform.
Right.
And it's just walking kind of like that. I was like, oh, okay, I get what you're doing here.
Yeah. There's a number of
Harvey,
great little Easter eggs in the movie.
yeah. And there's lots of little ones. I just saw it, so I haven't watched it again, but I'm sure there are, a few of those because I don't think they're not smart enough to do that.
So my favorite one is undoubtedly the name Iris and the Goo Goo Dolls song Iris.
Uh-huh.
That was on the soundtrack to City of Angels, starring Jack Quaid's mom, Meg Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
That's a nice little. I loved that little through line there. That was great.
Well, and what's Iris backwards?
Siri. Mm.
So.
That was,
I recommend this. I might actually, I've got some time this week. I might go see it again just to see if I can pick up on any of the Easter eggs in the theater. Although it is a busy week for movies for me, so.
I love the structure of this film. The opening scene is their meet cute. They're in a supermarket. She's kind of narrating and telling us about it, and he's coming up to her, and he's charming and befuddled like a Hugh Grant character, and he stumbles, and the oranges fall everywhere, and She just finds this endlessly adorable, but it's all visually very heightened and it feels too perfect. And then she wakes up in the car as if she were waking up from a dream. And you're like, oh, the reason that doesn't feel like it's real is because it's heightened because it was a memory, a dream memory. Like it's not what really happened. I get that. And he toys with that until we get to the house, and then he's like fully like giving everything away, about who she is and what she does. And but Sophie Thatcher is playing this on like so many different levels of her coming to understand who she is and what she's capable of, and then once she realizes what she's capable of, enacting what she's incapable of. It's really smart. Like she didn't even know she could stab somebody in the throat.
Yeah.
I mean, she didn't know she couldn't, but she didn't, it was not something that had ever entered her mind. And, I loved that relied on just pure human nature. They knew that the Russian guy was just such a such a loser that he was going to try something. Like there's just so many little smart touches like that throughout this movie that really impressed me. I think Drew Hancock is a terrific writer and director. His music drops are incredible. He's got a number of really great needle drops. This is a great soundtrack. Lots of early 70s stuff in here. And then that Boo Thing song is just me. That one broke me every single time they used it. The 2 times they used it were spot on.
Yeah, that was funny.
And it's such a silly song that, absolutely, that would be that moment. That would be something that an AI would choose as a prompt.
Well, and the recreation with both of the different actors in that scene was just so perfect. I mean, it was like I was watching. I wanted to watch it again to see if I could, pick out if there was any differences. But like all the choreography, everything was just perfect. So.
Yeah, and it's just that there's so many little things like that are just so smart about this movie that, like I said, even knowing what was going to happen, I was still kind of blown away by how good it is. I think it probably would have been even better if I'd gone in, completely blind. But nevertheless, the line that really like ruined it for me from the trailer is like, "Did you jailbreak your sex doll?" And it's like, that's a great line, and I know that's why they wanted it in the trailer. That's what's going to get people through the door is that line. So I get it. At the same time, I wish I didn't hear it before I saw it.
Yeah. Yeah. This was one I'm glad I didn't watch the trailer for. And I mean, if you're listening to us and you haven't seen it, then well, you're already spoiled. So might as well go watch the trailer.
I warned him. Speaking of warnings, I'm going to warn you about You're Cordially Invited. Will Ferrell and Reese Witherspoon's new comedy, available on Amazon now. This movie is it's a very conventional film, very typical. There's nothing wrong with that. Convention's fine. You just have to elevate the conventions, and this movie doesn't do that. So Will Ferrell and Reese Witherspoon are 2 people who have booked the same wedding venue for 2 different weddings for the same weekend. Will Ferrell's daughter is getting married, and Reese Witherspoon's little sister is getting married, and they're each being the person who's going to organize these weddings. And on one hand, you've got Reese Witherspoon playing this very conventional romantic comedy with potential to be something, and then you got Will Ferrell just being Will Ferrell. And I like Will Ferrell. I come off like I don't like Will Ferrell. I think Will Ferrell a few years ago was pretty great, but it was new. And when he tried to move into dramatic stuff, I thought he did a good job with that. Everything Must Go and Stranger Than Fiction are 2 really great performances that he didn't get enough credit for. He was quite good in a Woody Allen movie at the time as well. Those didn't work, so he went back to doing what he does, which is this big, broad antics, and he's not evolved ever since. He's just stayed with that. And so what we get is a lot of over-the-top Will Ferrell acting, and then this very conventional romantic comedy happening with Reese Witherspoon, and none of it is coming together. It's just Will Ferrell is playing this super broad character, and it's like watching, one of those bad Robin Williams performances where it's just Robin's trying to create comedy where none existed in script, and oftentimes going way off the page to a point where you're like, Robin, come back, and Will, it's like, Will, come back now. The some of the jokes though are like things that he's done before. Like he's done this joke in more than one movie in the past, maybe on an SNL sketch where two people who shouldn't be singing a song with each other are singing a song together, like a mom and a son, or like a sister and brother, that they're singing a love song that they don't know is a love song, and he does that with his daughter, where they sing "Islands in the Stream" together, and they don't realize that every line in "Island in the Stream" is about two people who are falling in love, and it's weird when a dad and daughter are singing that together. We've seen this joke though, like so many times, and they don't do anything new with it except for Will Ferrell just throwing himself into it. And that just happens so much in this movie. They've centered the marketing of this movie around this photo of Will Ferrell wrestling an alligator, and the alligator's in the movie. And then you're watching the movie and you get to the part with the alligator, and it's like, why is this even here? Like, it's not funny. It doesn't add anything. You can take out the alligator from the movie and it doesn't change anything. So why would that's the center of your marketing campaign? It just kind of tells you exactly that there's nothing to this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not something I would watch. A, I don't have Netflix anymore. B, it's just, I don't, Reese Witherspoon is fine, but I wouldn't, she's not somebody I would rush out to see something she's in. And the same with Will Ferrell. He is the only movie I've been able to stand him in is Elf.
Mm-hmm.
And that was because I watched it before he was Will Ferrell, to me. So I get what you're saying, because it's so like, it seems like it's so on brand for him.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's just he seems to not have any confidence in the movie that he's in, so he's trying to play it up so loud as to create comedy where it should come organically. And if it's not on the page, I understand that. Punch up the page, I mean, because he's just playing it so completely, awkward Will Ferrell. And that's just, it's not new, and it's getting less and less interesting every time he does it. And then the movie tries to put Will Ferrell and Reese Witherspoon together as a couple, and it's like, what are you even trying to do? You've done nothing to establish that these two people could be in the same universe, let alone try and be a romantic couple, and now you're trying to put them together. This does not compute. And it's not merely because she's like very attractive and he's kind of more of an average guy. I think women fall for average guys who are very funny all the time. But he doesn't do anything funny. He's not. I know the movie is telling you what he's doing is funny. And maybe some people will find what he's doing funny, but it's certainly not funny to her, because she's ruining the wedding of her little sister, and she's ruining the wedding of his daughter, and they're both horrible people doing horrible things to each other. Why would they ever remotely come to like each other, let alone be a couple? It's just such a bad premise, and just all of it is bad.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. That by the number scripting where it's like, okay, the script says they're together, so they're together. Don't do that. Just Hollywood, just don't do that.
You know what, though? I will say this. I have seen a lot of guys who look like me and are, some of the grossest people with some of the most beautiful women. And I'm like, were there no other men in your family tree you could have dated?
I mean, just some guys are very funny, and some women, they like that. That's every woman I've ever dated. Yeah, I think you'd do better with men, Jeff, if you didn't hate yourself so much. That might be. I'm just saying. I
don't hate myself. I'm realistic about like my dating pool.
Well, I don't recommend that movie at all. And so now that brings us back around to AI. And we're going to talk about artificial intelligence. We talked about it a little. We didn't really get into the artificial intelligence aspect of Companion, which it is about, it's about a robot, but it's also one that can learn and act on its, what it learns. And it's AI generated and powered and that kind of thing. Which is a topic that's been tackled in movies for quite longer than you would imagine. I mean, not even the movie we're going to talk about was made in 2001, but even before that, there were movies that speculated about the notion of artificial intelligence and robots that could learn and grow and have life experiences that are more than just recordings, or they can react to things like human beings. And that brings us to and the idea behind this movie actually was formed by Stanley Kubrick back in 1969 when he read a story by somebody else that had made even earlier than that. And he started forming the idea for artificial intelligence and started kicking it around for several years, talking about it with Spielberg, wanting to direct it himself. And he passed away, and Spielberg picked up the idea in tribute to him and made AI, which stars Haley Joel Osment as a child robot who is brought into the lives of two parents whose child has not died, but is in a state of a coma, and they've been in for quite some time, and they don't appear that they're going to get better. The husband thinks it'll be a good idea to bring this robot child into their life and to not replace their son, but give his wife at least something else to think about while their son is absent. And she does take the child, and she does choose to bond with it using the AI bonding stuff. Similarly, actually, to what we see in Companion. That's just how that works. They're staring into each other's eyes, saying a couple things, and it's paired to you as a person. The thing that struck me about the movie this time was, and it didn't strike me the first time, was that this is just a deeply cruel movie. It's a very cruel film. And I get we're talking about a robot. At the same time, we're also talking about the kid who is known as the kid from The Sixth Sense, playing a robot. And so everything that happens to him comes off as extraordinarily cruel, even as we're supposed to be watching him as a robot. But somehow Steven Spielberg seems to think that all this cruel shit that he's putting this child through is supposed to be, it's magical. It's supposed to be like uplifting at the end and like affirming of humanity. And I got to the end of AI this time, having seen it, and I think I put this in my top 10 of 2001, and now it feels like Crash or Amelia Perez now, because like watching it tonight, I was kind of like, the ending of the movie arrives, and oh wow, so we've got a robot child clutching the hand of his dead mother, and okay. That's the end of the movie. Well, wow, it's so uplifting.
I like saw this movie.
You hear about people who store their parents' bodies, in their house.
Yeah. Or it's like me grabbing a handful of my dad's ashes and going to sleep. We don't have a handful of ashes. We spread them all over. Anyway, I saw this movie when it first came out on video. Mm-hmm. I did not see it in the theater. I did not remember half of what I was watching. A few things I was like, oh yeah, okay, I remember this. I did not remember most of it though, and it was like, I get what they're going for, and it is a beautiful movie, and it's like the attention to detail is amazing, but wow, it's so sad. Everything about it is so sad. It's like these people are torturing robots for like fun, and I'm just like, this is exactly what makes it sad for me. Is that's what we would do. That's who we are as a country. And the cruelty is the point. So I guess that this is a very American movie. Oh, because we put we sink Manhattan because of global warming. Right. We put a young boy in a submarine helicopter hybrid, and he dies for 2,000 years until alien AI humanoid beasts come and resurrect him and give him one last day with his mother, who threw him out in the woods because of his manipulative brother. It was like the good son at one point.
Oh my God, yeah. That kid was awful.
Yeah, I was like, God, couldn't they kill him, put him in the woods? That would have actually been kind of an interesting story too, if the mom had been like, I don't like you.
That kid grew up to be a serial killer. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. And part of me is like, if you're going to go 2,000 years in the future, couldn't we like learn about what happened to humanity? Is it like, was there a cataclysmic event, or was it just they died off because of the melting of the polar ice caps, or what? So,
the thing about it is that the filmmaking aspect, much like Amelia Perez, actually, the filmmaking aspect is flawless. Like there's imagery in this that is just very unique. I don't think he paid enough attention to the storytelling details. I think he kind of adhered to what Kubrick was going for, which Kubrick ends. If this is a Stanley Kubrick movie, it ends with him trapped under the water praying, and that's it. That's the movie. We're done. We're going home now. There's no coda with aliens coming and making it better.
According to Spielberg, though, because I read some stuff on it, according to Spielberg, that was a discussion that he and Kubrick had before he died about how to actually end the movie. And apparently this was Kubrick's idea. So
maybe a man facing death changes his mind and makes it nice and soft, but I just don't feel it. I think the Kubrick who made The Shining, the Kubrick who's on his deathbed are two different guys viewing two different things. And I think he leaves it at the bottom of the ocean, which would have been a better ending, honestly.
I think he would have left him at the end of the ocean, and like in The Shining, you would have seen David in one of the piles of robot scraps. Like, would have just done the shot like they did Jack Nicholson in The Ice, but David in the scraps, and like his eyes slowly close or something.
I think what Spielberg's not doing is not actually paying attention to the things that he's implying. Which is the flesh fair thing. I don't think is really taken fully into account. How would we arrive at this as a society? Like, what is it that I know it's like maybe it's just cynical perspective on human nature or whatever, but like I just don't see I don't see what anyone would get out of doing that. I don't see why we would turn it into also, why is it a guy who flies around in a moon balloon? Like what did that I know it's like a neat visual and all, but like again, what is the evolution of our thought process that goes, the best way to catch fleeing robots is if I put a giant magnet in a balloon that looks like the moon. But that's the thought of a crazy person. That's not the thought of like somebody who's, trying to run a business, which I believe Brendan Gleeson is running this like human circus where they destroy robots or whatever for fun, whatever fun that's supposed to be. I don't know what fun that would be. Because all these robots can speak and talk. And I get that like it's supposed to be. And it's like, what a shitty metaphor, by the way. It's like, hey, this is a metaphor for like racism or something. No, it's not, because Black people are not defective. They're not broken. Other races are not defective or broken. They're different from humanity, but they're not defective and broken. Like these robots are. That is not, I hope that's not the allegory he's making. I don't think it is, but I don't really think he put a lot of thought into those aspects. I think he was more interested in a couple of the ideas and the visual aspect, and that's what he was going for. And I think he left the rest of it in hopes that kind of maybe, we'll punch up what Stanley had.
Yeah, I think that when Stanley Kubrick and Spielberg were talking and they bouncing off ideas from each other, I think that there are a few things in the movie that kind of struck me as stuff that Spielberg bounced out there and Kubrick said, no, I don't think so.
Uh,
I got that impression a few times during the movie. Um, Mostly with the William Hurt character.
yeah.
He seems so Spielbergian. Like he was
Mhm.
so earnest, and that's definitely not a Kubrick kind of guy. Um,
But what
yeah,
purpose
just
did he serve? Like in the end, like what purpose did he serve?
I I don't know. I mean, I don't know why he was the one, David's father, creator, whatever. I don't know why it had to be him, because
Hmm.
he was in the beginning of the movie. That's the only,
Right?
you know.
And at the same time, like maybe if you're going for like a Wizard of Oz, allegory, that doesn't work because he's never portrayed as an evil character. He's portrayed as a sad character. He's portrayed as a very weird character because what fucking guy creates numerous robot clones of his own son? Another aspect of this movie that nobody bothered to think about how fucking weird that is. Weird and creepy. If you're working for this guy and he's got my son died, let's make a bunch of robots of him. I'm quitting. I'm leaving, man. You go, you do you. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
That's fucking weird. But he convinced an entire corporation that this would be a great idea and they should sell it to the public. On top of which, why is his headquarters still in Manhattan? The entire place is flooded and nowhere near the rest of humanity.
Because it has to be a quest movie. It can't be.
Like he what if they don't go see Dr. No? Then they never get there. Like again, they're relying on David's, desire to find the blue fairy is the entire, crux of this. And he got that, and he knows that from talking to Frances O'Connor's character, the mom, that that's what he might be doing. But that's kind of an inference on her part too. Like did they ever have a conversation, her and David, about how much this meant to him and what he wanted out of it? Like, I just think there's so much about this movie that I didn't think about the first time I saw it, and now I watched it, and I'm just thinking about all of it now. It's like this actually doesn't make sense. I think what Spielberg wanted was that whole. I think there is something touching and beautiful about the whole Pinocchio thing. I thought that was a great idea, and I thought they were going to develop that, but they kept getting into the other stuff, like it feels like you've got the Pinocchio fairy tale child allegory going on, and then let's throw in a sex robot.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not going to do anything with him or redeem him or turn him out to be a good. He's kind of along for the ride. This kid saved his life, so it's kind of like I owe him a debt. I got to help him, and Jude Law is very entertaining, but at the same time, like that character doesn't add anything to the movie. He just makes you ask some more uncomfortable questions about this society.
He adds about 45 minutes to the movie. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that?
It's a fair assessment. I like the character, so I wasn't like, I didn't feel that way about it. But if you don't like the character, I understand where you're coming from.
Well, I think that his backstory could have just been told in a couple lines. I didn't need to see, him with the woman and then him with the dead body. I didn't need to see any of that to get who he was. I mean,
it adds nothing.
Literally,
The journey
yeah.
is
Literally, his appearance told me everything I needed to know about it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but what difference does it make if you turn him into like an ex butler ex butler bot who's kind of wandering in the universe trying to figure out what he's supposed to do with his life now that he's not a servant, and he becomes your Jiminy Cricket character who's helping the boy get to the blue fairy. What do you lose in that? I guess they're kind of going for like a way of like, oh, we're going to redeem him, but then they don't. Because he doesn't actually do anything wrong. He's never like, he didn't actually kill that woman. And maybe he's a sex worker, but like that's not a wrong thing. You can be a sex worker. There's nothing wrong with that. So what are you redeeming him from? And then you don't redeem him. So then what were you saying at all with this character?
Yeah. And then he just gets pulled up by the helicopter.
And we're supposed to be like all emotional about it. And it's like, well, he served his purpose. Thanks, I guess. And the kid doesn't remember him.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't totally like. I thought it'd be very funny if like the aliens accidentally landed on a picture of Joe and brought him back instead of his mom or something. Oh shit, that's not what I was wanting. This was in your memories, and you had a great time with him, and we saw you smiling at him and laughing with him. So we thought we'd bring him back for you.
Is this your father?
Exactly.
No. Yeah, he does the Vader no.
And then
Or he meets him and he's like, "Oh, this was really underwhelming. Thanks, Joe."
Yeah. Joe's finish instead is like, it's like, well, we need to get Joe out of here because we can't have him sitting in the submarine for 12,000 years. That would he'd just be talking the whole time, playing music, and just would not be good. I just don't think this movie was well thought out. I think it's another thing where it's like, your perspective on it is you're watching a Steven Spielberg movie and you just assume that Steven Spielberg movies are good, which most of the time you can do. He's made amazing movies. It's very easy to suspect that when you're watching a Spielberg movie, it's going to be very good. Then you watch this or you watch Ready Player One and you realize he has his flaws. He doesn't necessarily see the world, in a fashion that always makes sense. He's still an incredibly talented filmmaker, but he's still at the mercy of a script in many ways. And if the script isn't good, which I don't think was a good script, he's kind of at its mercy and he doesn't quite know what to do with it. I think the same thing happened to him on Ready Player One. He just didn't know what to do with that. He just presented a bunch of stuff and said, "Here, hopefully that's enough for you." Remember these things? You remember all these things you remember? There they are. Thanks. What about a story? No. Just the thing. Look at the thing from the movie you like.
Yeah, it was kind of like in a way Ready Player One, because you could see all the elements of different stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.
But not as explicitly as Ready Player One. Maybe that's what inspired him to do that movie.
Maybe. I don't know what else could have been, because that movie is terrible. And that book is just as bad. Oh, man. I'm shocked. I'm honestly shocked by this, Jeff. Like, I honestly feel like I did the time that I watched Crash with Bob, and just kind of like, oh, yeah, no, you're right. It's one of the best episodes we ever did. I actually went to Bob's house, and because he was adamant that Crash was a bad movie, and I was in my days when I was like, no, I'm right about this movie. I don't need to, I don't change my mind about things. Roger Ebert, best movie of the year. It won the Oscar for Best Picture. This is a good movie. Sat down and watched it, and I'm like, oh my God, what a piece of shit. Just such a whiny piece of crap this is. And it's like, oh yeah, okay. And that was that's a great turning point for the way I watch movies, was that one. And now this, and this is why we do the classic on the show, is stuff like this. Like, I've had the opposite experience. Like, I thought going into Amadeus, I thought that was going to be homework. I thought, like, I don't want to watch this. This is like homework. This is going to be super dull about a guy I don't care about, set in a past that I don't care about. And Amadeus is like a movie now that if I even think about that movie, I get emotional, because it's so amazing in every possible way. And just kind of that's like, those experiences are why we have classics on the show.
Yep. I'm glad I picked this, because it went really well with
Companion.
Yeah.
It was a good companion for companion.
Yeah, all right. See what you did there.
But I'm bummed.
God, good thing you're a critic and not a comedian. Oh, that's great. Because I got the DVD at a yard sale for $1, and I was like, when we were talking about what's a classic, and I'm like, companion. And I always first like to go to my prodigious physical media collection, because physical media needs to be kept alive. And it literally was almost like it leapt out at me, and I was like, oh, of course. I bought this so I could watch it again, and I haven't watched it again, and now is the perfect chance. And I was underwhelmed, but you can't win them all, right?
Yeah. This changed me. Have you ever had one of those experiences though, like what I had with Amadeus, like on a positive side, where you're like, I don't want to watch that. I remember it being this and that, and then you watch it like, oh my god, wow.
Yeah. God, what was? I'm trying to think of one that like really. I guess Halloween 3. And
Really?
I
Okay.
know that like, so when I watched that as a kid, I was among those who hated it because it wasn't Michael Myers.
Right.
And I never watched it again. I watched it on VHS. My aunt bought me the VHS or something, and I watched it, and I was so mad. I was like, where the fuck is Michael Myers? And then about 10 years ago, closer to 15, I guess I was living in um, New York at the time, and somebody got the got the Blu-ray from Shout Factory and already had it. And this is when I was working with them, and they said, "Do you want this movie? I'll give it to you for $10." And I was like, "Oh, I hated that movie, but the artwork was so cool on the cover." Sure, okay. So I got it for $10, and took me a couple weeks, and I sat down and watched it. And I was like, "Oh my god, I totally forgot about this." Like totally did not get this when I was a kid. This is a great, fun, like B movie, and I it's one that I watch every Halloween, and I've actually skipped the original Halloween at Halloween to watch part 3 because it's I've seen the original a million
Mhm.
times, and because I haven't seen this one a million times, I sometimes just I watch that during the season instead of the Michael Myers one. So
Yeah, it's funny, like the way that popular culture sort of helps to shape our opinions in good and bad ways. Like for years, I was afraid of criticizing Halloween because like it's one of those untouchable things. You know, everybody
mhm.
loves Halloween and thinks it's this unending masterpiece of horror. And it took me a while to come around to my feelings about not liking it and just kind of fighting the idea of like, why don't I like this? And then finally I talked about it on the show. And I was like, yeah, okay, I actually have what I feel are good reasons not to like this. I don't think this is very good. And in the but culture like tries you it gets so ingrained to the point where like you don't even watch something, but you think to yourself, well, that's a good movie. Everybody's
Mhm.
told me that. You know, that's an untouchable classic. Or that's a piece of shit is another great one. Like there's been a few where people tell you, like I think Cannibal Holocaust is incredible. I
Yeah.
think it did. I think there are elements of Cannibal Holocaust that are absolutely. I mean, there's the acting is bad, but it's in many ways supposed to be. But I'm saying that there's so many elements of it that are ugly and gross, but at the same time very effective, very evocative. The overall point about violence in the media is kind of similar to that documentary that I saw about the killing of America. Like, I think that movie's kind of brilliant, even though society has spent years telling me it's not. For years I grew up thinking that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was just this bad movie that exploited a bunch of dead teenagers, and in reality, that's actually one of the greatest movies ever made, and it's
Mhm.
actually commenting. It is actually this perfect comment on the changeover from the end of the hippie dream and into Reagan's America that's coming up the pipe. I, Incredible! Like that movie is a turning point. It's a flashpoint in American society.
Mhm.
When you really drill down on everything that's in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the the notion of going from a time when people could just you're just left your door unlocked to a time when lock the fucking door and throw away the key, do not let anyone in here. That
Yeah.
movie, flashpoint of that, capturing like I know Manson is like where that starts, but like this was the first film that captures what happened with the Manson murders to that date in when Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out and kind of underlined that change of American society.
Yeah, I think that was one of in the 70s as movies started to try to test the boundaries of the code and everything like that early 70s cinema was starting, they're pushing boundaries, and this really just pushed the boundaries right off the fucking cliff. Whereas I think that obviously Black Christmas inspired Halloween. And that I've always said it never gets the due. Halloween is a great movie. It is like super suspenseful when the music is playing, but if you ever watch it without the music, it's so boring. It really is. It's like that is what makes the movie scary. I think that Texas Chainsaw is a superior movie to Halloween, but the original Halloween is and always will be a classic. But you've seen it, and then they keep repeating it over and over and over. So yeah, seeing something fresh like 3 really, really kind of opened my eyes as an adult to, God, I wish they hadn't been pussies and like would have gone on with the anthology of it all. But everybody hated the fact that it wasn't Michael Myers, so they stayed away. So
yeah.
It's
just, went back to
formula.
Microwaving your leftovers and feeding them back to you. The entirety of the Halloween franchise to me is just
and some of the later
3,
ones, it's like throwing them up and then feeding them back to you.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, but what's funny is that if you were to chart to like your own human evolution, like if you're 20 years old and listening to this right now, watch a Robert Altman movie and you're probably going to hate it. But then come back to it 15 or 20 years later, you're going to get Robert Altman. That's how kind of like Altman is like that. Like Texas Chainsaw is kind of like that too, where the public has created a perception around it of what it is, and then you have to experience it for yourself, and then you have to experience it again, when you're more mature and you understand yourself and the world a little bit better. Not that I understand the world completely. I don't. No one does. But I understand the world a little bit better than I did when I was 20.
Yeah.
Which is
kind of wish I didn't.
Sorry, I would interrupt you.
No, I just said I kind of wish it wasn't as, like I didn't understand it as much, because I understand a little too much at this point.
Yeah. So AI really stinks. Who knew?
Yeah, it's.
If you listen to me 27 years ago, or 17 years ago, you would think, oh my God, how long ago was it? 24 years. Sorry, I can't do math right now. 24 years ago,
it's 2025.
You'd be listening to a guy going, wow, that was amazing, man. And now you're listening to me today going, that was a piece of shit. That really isn't very good at all.
Yep.
And yeah, that's kind of my feelings now, is that I don't think AI is very good at all. And I just didn't really think about it the first time. And now our attention spans have shrunken so much that I watched Emilia Perez in November and liked it. And now it's February and I don't like it. So there you go. That's how people change.
Yep.
Today versus 24 years ago. Jeff, hopefully, we definitely agree that The Companion is awesome and definitely worth checking out. We've had an amazing 2025 so far, especially with, again, horror movies. We've just seen so much cool shit so far this year. Will it continue next week is a question. Heart eyes, I'm not sure. It's giving me a bad vibe, but I don't know.
Hearing good things about it.
That's good.
From a couple of my horror people. Looking forward to it.
I love the trailer. Go ahead.
So we haven't had a really big Valentine's Day massacre, so to speak, horror movie in 25 years almost.
That awful David Boreanaz movie.
Oh, it's so campy though. Oh my God. so campy.
Maybe it's better 20-some years later. Who knows? Maybe I'll need to see it. I hated it the first time I saw it.
That's our classic.
Oh, fuck.
I mean, hey, you just sold me on it.
Oh, fuck. I like the trailer for Love Hurts. I love Kiwi Kwan. I think he is incredible. And, seeing Marshawn Lynch, again, that guy who is so amazing in Bottoms. I can't wait to see him do comedy and action. Like, that's going to be fantastic. I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing that one next week as well.
I had no, I guess I didn't have any sort of desire to see that because of romantic comedy. But listening to Ki Hye Kwan on Mark Maron today was just like, oh God, I love his enthusiasm. And he's so like, everything is just so great for him right now that I've got to go see it. So
yeah, he's terrific. He's so great. I'm excited. I've got a really good vibe from that one. I'm iffy on Hard Eyes, but I'm going to be hopeful because we've had such a great year so far.
Yeah, I went to see The Silence of the Lambs the other day with my sister, and that.
What a great movie!
Yes. That trailer came on before it. My sister was like, I said, "Do you want to go see that with me?" She's like, "Absolutely fucking not," because it looks scary. I'm like, I don't think it looks necessarily scary. It just,
you sit down to watch The Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, right. And tomorrow night, I'm going to go see the original My Bloody Valentine from 1981. And then later in the week, Hellraiser is on big screens again. So
wow.
Never seen that in the theater either. So I was going to go see Midsommar tonight, but we had to record some point this week. So
yeah. Well, Midsommar, of course, will never change. That's going to be an amazing movie forever.
Yeah.
Some movies just get it the first time,
Yeah. Our classic next week is Valentine, and
okay.
I had to subject you to that.
All right. So yeah, Hard Eyes, Love Hurts, and Valentine next week. Thanks,
Sounds
Jeff.
good. See you later.